Dámy a pánové.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I hope that you've eaten enough, that you are not too tired, too worn out. And this is a follow-up on the morning session. We will discuss the possibility of development of hydrogen. After the morning discussion, I think we could go into depth a bit more. And we are going to talk about barriers and obstacles for hydrogen management. Of course, keep using Slido as you do. This is fantastic. Please post your questions on Slido. And of course, there is another opinion poll on Slido regarding the barriers in hydrogen management. So please answer. And there is also simultaneous interpretation available. This afternoon, the discussions are going to be partly in English. So please, I would like to ask you to ask the technicians in the foyer if you want to use the headsets. That's the last thing that I wanted to mention regarding the organization. And there is a parallel session together with this block. There is a seminar regarding financial tools and opportunities. So please go there. If you are interested in the next 3 hours, it's going to be very interesting. And the entire program is already prepared and is about the topic I just mentioned. So, I would like to ask the first speaker, Petr Votoupal from the European Commission, Directorate General of Regional and Urban Policy. Petr, please join us. The clicker is ready. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the floor. I would also like to thank the organizers for their invitation to this forum. I'll start my brief opening presentation. This is a great honor for me to be here, and I'm very humbled to be able to present here because there are more people present here who are experts on this topic. It is not my ambition to explain to you what hydrogen is and how it is produced and stored and transported. My task is mentioning the political framework of European Commission, as well as the legislative framework. My name is Petr Votoupal. This is not important. What is important is that I work at DG Regional and Urban Policy. It is one of the regional directorates, general directors in European Commission. Well, there are 30 Directorate General departments altogether, and those departments suggest European policy in various fields. I represent DG Regional and Urban Policy, and the reason why I'm here in Ústí is that I'm program manager who is in charge of the program Just Transition. Of course, there is a connection between this program and hydrogen, but of course there is also a very strong bond between Just Transition and the region of Ústí. And it is an honor to tell you that the Commissioner signed the program Just Transition. The Czech Republic is the 6th country in European Union that already received the signature. The program has been signed. And it is the 3rd country in European Union that got the signature for all structural programs. And we can start implementing those programs from now on for hydrogen as well. European Commission is a large organism, and of course there are other departments as well, other bodies, especially Franz Timmermann is someone who is responsible for this topic, and he set up the strategic framework, which is called Hydrogen Strategy for Clean Europe, which was issued in July 2020. You can see the individual points that were set as milestones for European Commission. And this strategic document explains why Europe should focus on hydrogen and what are the objectives. So this was July 2020. And now let's skip to March 2022, where the situation changed very dramatically. And in March, Repower EU was issued. The aim of Repower EU was to help Europe get rid of Russian energy, Russian gas. One of the objectives of the European Commission was focus on hydrogen. So this document contains a very detailed passage about hydrogen and also about the hydrogen accelerator. There are several measures involved and 7 actions that need to be implemented very quickly so that we can use hydrogen in European economy as fast as possible. I think that it's not a secret for you that hydrogen is about 2% of the overall consumption of European energy. This is not much, of course, and at the moment this is an experimental technology only. In the regulation Repower EU, our goal is to double European objectives by 2030, those that were mentioned in the hydrogen strategy. And we suppose that by 2030, Europeans should have 20 billion tons of hydrogen available, out of which 10 million tons should be produced in the European Union, and the additional 10 tons should be imported. A very important note to this topic is that European Commission keeps talking about green hydrogen. This is something that we need to take into consideration. You probably all know the color scheme. Green hydrogen is a type of hydrogen that European Commission and European Union intends to support and promote. Grey hydrogen is possible and tolerated. However, that's about it. The green color is essential. However, it is not about just those 2 documents, Hydrogen Strategy and Repower EU. It is important to establish more documents throughout all policies of European Commission and European Union, all the policies that are to be implemented. There must be this demand and supply scheme. And again, we are talking about the chicken or the egg, what was here before. And we need to involve hydrogen in other documents of European Commission. Directive on renewable energy is the key. It is also important in aviation industry and maritime industry. This is also connected to emission permits. In order to be able to produce, we need to prepare some projects, and the association called European Clean Hydrogen Alliance should help to achieve that. European Clean Hydrogen Alliance was established based on the adoption of hydrogen strategy, and it is a replication of a successful scheme that was already used when the common internal market was established 30 years ago. There was a round table of industrial stakeholders where there were various entities in this area. For European Clean Hydrogen Alliance, there were about 1,600 stakeholders, most of them from industry, but some of them also from the broad public or public society, civic society. And our goal is to organize further round tables, and this is also a function of think tanks. We also want to prepare other projects in the area of hydrogen. We want to organize conferences and promote this topic even further. We managed to prepare those projects. There are about 750 of them altogether. And the features of the project are mentioned on the slide. The criteria, the first one is the implemented relatively fast. They should cover all areas, and geographically they should also cover all countries or member states of European Union. Today, in this alliance, we see members from all member states and projects that are active in all member states except for 2. What is more important is the funding. So financing is going to use subsidy programs, especially those will be programs that are financed from emission permits, but also other subsidy schemes from European Union, including European Fund of Regional Development and Just Transition Fund. And DG Regio is responsible for the Fund of Just Transition. We established also the so-called hydrogen valleys. This is a scheme that is quite common, or well, it started to spread 4 years ago, and 3 years ago there were only 3 such existing groups in various regions, and now there are more than 60 regions involved. So we want to establish this local infrastructure of hydrogen valleys. We don't want to transport hydrogen long distance, so this should work in a comprehensive way. We are only beginning this trend, but we have a lot of support. It's going to be supported in future as well, and it is one of the ways how to increase the use of green hydrogen. Now, this is my daily work, and that's a general regulation regarding the structural funds, the ERDF and the Cohesion Fund, as well as Just Transition Fund. So let's be very honest. In those legislative documents, we mention hydrogen because this is a specific topic. And when we perceive hydrogen, it is perceived as a fossil fuel. And of course, this is the consequence of the primary mean of production of hydrogen. However, in Article 7, we see an exception that says that hydrogen, when it is green, can be supported. And even the management of our Directorate General focused on this and issued an internal note. In July 2021, the note said that renewable hydrogen can be supported from our funds. However, there won't be any other types of hydrogen that DG is going to support. The note also deals with transportation of hydrogen. This is a topic that was very present in the past and is still going to be discussed even further. The question is whether we can add hydrogen to gas and use the existing gas infrastructure. According to this note, and of course notes can be developed as well, but this note says that this blending is not possible. However, what is possible is to establish infrastructure from European funds that's going to use clean hydrogen. Then we have cohesion policy programs. So far, they mentioned projects regarding hydrogen only exceptionally. They were mentioned in some projects of research and development, experimental use of hydrogen. That was the past. Now there will be more and more projects that are going to support hydrogen valleys. And there is also a scheme under DG Regio, which is called Regional and Innovation Investment 3E. The call was already open and I saw that there were 3 projects selected. It is a cooperation between the Dutch hydrogen producers and their partners in Spain and Portugal.
This initiative is still underway and it's not a standard part of supporting programs. That is why it presents many questions. Financing is available for projects on the shift from fossil fuels, for example, in the steel industry. And if we have these issues, the easiest way is to address DG Regio, because we are able to produce an official answer within 3 or 4 months that will be officially binding on all stakeholders and for all similar cases. Using this last slide, I would like to thank you for your attention. And to conclude on an optimistic note, let me quote President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. 14 days ago, she had a speech in the European Parliament on the State of the Union. And let me quote what she said, because she deserves this. Green hydrogen can be a great change for Europe. It has to get to massive market. Within the Repower EU, we doubled our objective. Within the EU, we want to produce 10 million tons of hydrogen by 2030 from renewable sources. We have to overcome the deficit and we have to create those who shape the market. That is why we are creating the so-called European Hydrogen Bank that can invest 3 billion euros for creating the future hydrogen market. Thank you. This is the latest political initiative from the top of the European Union, and it will make use of hydrogen possible in future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Petr. I'm sure that we are going to discuss Ursula von der Leyen's quote. Thank you for your presentation. I would like to give the floor to the next speaker, member of the board of Hydrogen Europe, Javier Navarro Espada. Please join us on stage. And you have 15 minutes for your presentation. The floor is yours.
The clicker is on stage.
I am very glad to be here with you. Congratulations for this interesting program that you have prepared. You are really in the heart of Europe. I could realize that perfectly. And the economical structure of your region present similitudes, important similitudes with our regional structure in Aragon. Excuse me. I am in Spain. I am the General Director of Industry and Small and Medium Enterprises in Aragon. In Aragon, we have the more or less like the landers. We have the autonomous communities. Is the same. And the structure is the same than one region. And now I am here like a member of the board of the directors in Hydrogen Europe. That is for me is an honor to have the confidence of Hydrogen Europe and to be here in name of them. Hydrogen Europe is fostering the advance of the high-tech hydrogen technologies in Europe. Talking about the vision and the mission of Hydrogen Europe, the vision is to propel the global carbon neutrality by accelerating the European hydrogen industry. And about the mission, Hydrogen Europe represents European-based companies and stakeholders that are committed to moving towards a circular carbon-neutral economy. I have to put the accent in the industry, the companies. It's a broad alliance, but the industrial and the big and small and medium companies are the center of Hydrogen Europe. Hydrogen Europe is the spearhead of the hydrogen industry. It's based trying to have influence in the policy and decision makers for hydrogen technology and applications. Wants to support and facilitate our members in their transition toward circular carbon neutral economy while creating and maintaining sustainable jobs. And finally, Hydrogen Europe want to drive markets to hydrogen-based solutions and remain the key industrial partner of the Clean Hydrogen Joint Undertaking. The mission of Hydrogen Europe is focused in the market. It's an important detail. To give you one idea about the dimension of Hydrogen Europe, I'm going to show you several figures. It has 410 members. It has more than 40 and very qualified employees. It has 110,000 followers in social media, and Hydrogen Europe encompass the entire value chain of the hydrogen ecosystem, from production, distribution to end users, including industry, European Union regions, and national associations centered in the hydrogen. I believe that European regions have an important role in the design of realistic political decisions to put on ground the first hydrogen projects, and have an important role to enhance the stakeholders' cooperation and to get social interest and social acceptance about the hydrogen. The regional pillar is young. It was launched in January this year, in 2022. It belongs to Hydrogen Europe, and it has 26 regional members. I am the representative in the board of Hydrogen Europe. The objective of the pillar is promoting regional and local support and investments in the H2 value chain, to facilitate the setup of public-funded projects. It's important because the regions are close to the local industries and is in the middle of the banks and entities of financing at local level. And two, the regions have a good influence in the state policies. Another objective is the matchmaking to propose sessions with industry and research, and promoting interaction between industry, regional and local authorities to improve knowledge sharing. Hydrogen Europe does work by itself, work with more people, and the most important institution is the European Commission. Then there are one partnership, and Hydrogen Europe in this industrial partner of the Clean Hydrogen Partnership, with the European Commission supporting research, technological development and demonstration activities in the field of fuel cells and hydrogen energy technologies in Europe. Clean Hydrogen Partnership, you can see, involves three general directions: research and innovation, energy, mobility. You can, we have today the regions directorate, and in Hydrogen Europe there are two divisions, Hydrogen Europe and another that is more focused in Hydrogen Europe. The partnership preserves and reinforces the forefront position of the European players on a global scale. Hydrogen Europe, with Hydrogen Europe Research, acts as a coordinating body of the important private partners.
Good morning. First of all, very warm welcome to today our online version of the Info Day for the call of 2022. Our first call under the new Clean Hydrogen Partnership, I have to say, because we started the new partnership on the 1st of December last year. So this is our first call, and what kind of a call? It's the biggest one in the history of the joint undertaking. It's 300.5 million euro, 41 topics, and it's probably, I'm not sure, but I guess it's the biggest one ever on this planet, dedicated to hydrogen, and this all for during 1 year. We can see that there's a lot of interest because today there are, I think, around 1,200 participants subscribed to this info day. So it shows the large interest. And of course, we are hoping to receive a fantastic proposal.
Okay, we have one message from Hydrogen Europe. Another important concept, another important line, the name of it was repeated several times today, are the hydrogen valleys. They try to cover a definite geographical area in which hydrogen serves more than one end user application in mobility, industry, and energy, comprises substantial financial investment, and covers more of the hydrogen value chain. Clean Hydrogen Partnership supports investment, very important, supporting in H2 valleys, 2 hydrogen valleys to be supported in 2022, and is planned 4 hydrogen valleys in 2023. And the Commission announced a top-up to CHP of 200 million euros to double the number of hydrogen valleys. We call the hydrogen valleys the hydrogen ecosystems. In Spain, in Aragon, we call it that way. In words of our President von der Leyen at the European Hydrogen Week in 2021, hydrogen valleys are a perfect example of the hydrogen economy we want to build. Now I will explain something about Aragon. Aragon is just in the border with France. We are at 300 kilometers of the more important cities of Spain. We have the 80% of the GDP at less of 300 kilometers. We are an industrial region. We had one ratio of GDP more than 150% of the media of Spain. We produce our electricity is very important in Spain. We produce more than the 12% of the Spanish electricity, and the 77% of that electricity is renewable energy. And now, at this moment, the ratio of primary energy, we are over the 45%. In primary energy, you can realize we comply with all the objectives of the European Union for 2030. Our experience in renewable energies is very wide and very old. In 1986, we had the first wind farm in Spain that could be one of the first wind farms in Europe. In 2003, we started one strategy about the hydrogen 20 years ago, and we are working continuously and working in the Europe institution and looking for partnerships with another regions of Europe. And we know the government and the enterprises of Aragon and any other entities. We found one tool to work on hydrogen. Is the foundation for the development of new hydrogen technologies in Aragon. Its director is here, Fernando Palacín, who will moderate this table. We work making master plans. We have a strategic vision. Now we are in the 4th master plan, and it's important, for example, in the last master plan, 2016 to 2020 is important. We had 77 projects in our region. We had investments for 35 million euros, and in that 35 millions, 26 millions were global returns from open public calls. That can give you one idea about the returns that you can get in public calls if you start to work. You have to put your part. But now, at this moment, it's easy to get returns. At the Aragon Foundation, I am not going to talk very much about it, but I can to say you that if we, in that moment, were not created the foundation, we, for sure, one public administration, we will not be here today. That's for sure. At the first moment, they started to be market-oriented. Not only the research, not only the development. Looking for niches in the market to try to solve real problems of the industries, and that's the philosophy. We have our own hydrogen valley at Haiga. We have 76 projects, 82 supporters in the hydrogen valleys, and I only have to say you that the total amount of money now is 3,000 million euros, and the scope in terms of time we want to work during 15 years. I am not almost telling that we did one alliance. The Ebro hydrogen corridor is in the north of Spain with the border with France. The four regions as Basque Country, Navarra, Aragon, and Catalonia. You can see it in different colors and pounds and dots. And the more important thing is to reach all the value chain, uses and production, and technical capabilities, industrial capabilities, thinking into build installation and to build different parts of the equipment. And nothing more. Thank you very much, and we will talk later.
Thank you. Thank you very much. K tématům, které Javier Navarro Espada otevřel, se vrátíme zase za chviličku.
Now, regarding the topics that were opened in the presentation of Mr. Navarro Espada, we will return later. And now I would like to ask Mr. Ondřej Ptáček to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation to the organizers. I think that many things have been said here today, and the afternoon part of conferences is usually more demanding because it's after lunch. It's demanding for the participants, and us, the speakers, are expected to say something that you haven't heard before. And there have been quite a lot of information that you heard in the morning, but I hope that I will be also able to show you a different perspective now. My name is Ondřej Ptáček, and in PricewaterhouseCoopers, I deal with ESG for companies, and this involves some new topics, for example, the support of hydrogen development. Of course, this is a relatively new topic, even for us, but in the Czech Republic, we already implemented some projects for important stakeholders in the industry. And we helped establish the supply hydrogen chain, some roadmaps, and we want to spend another after 10 years in petrochemistry, we want to deal with the development of hydrogen vehicles. However, my presentation today is going to focus on the topic of acceleration of hydrogen usage. We considered what our contribution in this block at today's conference should look like, and when we talk about the European dimension of hydrogen management development, we heard something similar in the presentation of Mr. Botopal, who is a representative of European Commission who has a lot to say. So I wanted to say something a bit different, and I wanted to tell you how PricewaterhouseCoopers perceives hydrogen management and how we would like to accelerate the use of hydrogen in the future, because this is our pathway, and this is where the current geopolitical situation has been leading us. Hydrogen strategy of European Union, we heard about that. There are 6 pillars. And I think now the key role for acceleration of hydrogen use, there are going to be 3 main points. We need to develop technologies so that the technologies can be very well applied in our market and our partnerships function well. There should be also value chains that work well. We heard that from Petr Mervart in the morning, that the chemical industry has been here for more than 100 years, and we can't really catch up with this development with hydrogen in 1 year or a few years. Then there are other 2 areas, hydrogen partnerships, that's the first one. And we heard about Hydrogen Europe a while ago. This is the largest association, a connection of private and public sector that deals with hydrogen management. And the third area, of course, that's the financing. In this sense, I think that it would be certainly beneficial to see how the 14 billion Czech crowns are going to be used that we got from the National Recovery Plan from EU. A part of it should be used for hydrogen, and we would like to see how it is going to be effectively used. It's also part of Repower EU, this funding. However, those 3 objectives, technology, partnerships and financing, are a part of the entire hydrogen strategy EU. We are one of the largest legal companies in the world, and PricewaterhouseCoopers supports hydrogen activities in European Union. There are various projects, and of course we can use a global network, we can cooperate within this network. You can see some studies on this slide on the right. We established those studies, and the German team of PricewaterhouseCoopers really focuses very intensively on hydrogen for some time. We cooperate with the German team quite closely. What is interesting is the map that you can see here. We put it together in the last year. This is just an estimate how much the production of 1 kilo of green hydrogen would cost, according to individual countries in the world, if we would produce hydrogen in all particular countries. Here in Europe it is 3 to 4 euros per kilogram, and of course we want to intensify research and development and be more efficient in our hydrogen partnerships. However, it can also develop in a different direction as well. What I would like to point out is Iceland. You can see it in green color. And of course, there won't be any problems with production of green hydrogen because there are natural resources, water and wind, which is very cheap and easy to use. So we can only congratulate countries such as Iceland. We prepared a calculation that would show how much hydrogen we would need globally per year, so that we fulfill the goals of climate changes, and it's 220 to 600 million tons, and this is a huge amount of hydrogen. All studies show that in this global document we expect that the majority user of hydrogen is going to be industry, then transport, and then other sectors. What I find interesting, and we should not forget this in a discussion regarding acceleration of use of hydrogen in Europe, is that we should not forget the existing legislation, EU taxonomy and hydrogen. And the criteria of EU taxonomy, those are criteria that have been present for us for at least 1 year. Here you can see what we mentioned in the morning panel already. EU taxonomy is absolutely essential for green financing provided by banks and other financial investors in private sector. EU taxonomy says that the taxonomical hydrogen, so-called taxonomical hydrogen, is considered to be green hydrogen, and any technology that enables the production of 1 ton of hydrogen by using less than 3 tons of CO2 is considered to be beneficial. Of course, we've seen the newest trends in European Union that are already advanced. We saw that in ESIF, in European Commission, we consider only renewable hydrogen for the future. And we heard that in the previous presentation that renewable hydrogen is a majority technology that is mentioned by hydrogen associations. We keep talking about low-carbon hydrogen as well, and there is no reason why banks or other investors could not support other forms of hydrogen, of low-carbon hydrogen than the renewable hydrogen. Of course, we will see how the EU taxonomy is going to develop in the future. Here, hydrogen is a part of Repower EU. That's the plan of European Union to replace Russian fossil sources, fossil fuels. And of course, we see the acceleration of energy in the name of this program. I think that we heard it clearly that there is a lot of allocated money for the development, for the research. Of course, there's never enough money or too much money. We will see how much of the resources we will be able to use to develop hydrogen management and acceleration of its production. Within Repower EU, we see the requirement to define renewable hydrogen, additional 10 tons until 2030, and additional 10 million tons should be imported from non-EU countries. Non-EU countries, it's important to mention partnerships again. We have seen the Spanish region of Aragon, and of course partnerships with other countries in the south, in northern Africa, could be considered. For example, Morocco. There is a huge potential for production of renewable hydrogen. And then, of course, that's something that's probably in year 2040, or rather than a very near future. Of course, when you talk about acceleration of clean energy, we keep talking about the price of the hydrogen, and of course, if we have those goals of 10 million plus additional 10 million tons in the EU, we need to consider the costs as well. I don't want to persuade people who are already persuaded about the necessity of hydrogen. There are some basic questions and answers here on this slide, and I think it's pretty straightforward. We need some resources for domestic production of hydrogen, and we hear that quite often. We are quite far from the sea. We are in the middle of Europe on a plateau, and we can only use solar panels and wind power plants can be used only in a limited way. But I think that's clear to all of us. So what about the subsidies? Acceleration of hydrogen use should be reflected in the financing scheme. You can see the overview of various funds. We want to strengthen, reinforce the funding from those funds. We heard that already today, and you already know that in the programs ENERG ETS, we can use some limited possibilities as well in other programs, but in the region of Ústí, it's going to be very important to involve 2 strategic projects regarding hydrogen that were already approved in the operational program Strategic Transformation. So those are domestic sources of funding, and then of course we should not forget other sources as well. There are no managing bodies in the Czech Republic. I think that we heard the topic of IPCEM in the morning panel. We helped the Czech project in IPCEM that got a specific notification from European Commission. IPCEI, that was quite high-tech. And there's also a project that deals with hydrogen buses. So here you can see resources of funding, and European Hydrogen Bank, that has been mentioned here several times, must be involved here as well. So if we talk about the cooperation with European Investment Bank, the projects that are financed by this bank must be quite large, at least 100 million euros, so that the bank wants to finance them. But I expect the Czech Developmental Bank could be involved as well to help finance the projects. Ursula von der Leyen mentioned 3 billion euros, and I think it would be fantastic if a part of this funding could be used in the Czech Republic. Then, of course, Connecting Europe facility, Horizon Europe, those are other possibilities of funding. This topic is highly prioritized by European Commission. At the same time, the topic of hydrogen is relatively new. And then there are several European programs of this type, of a similar type, where we should provide the communication with IEB or European Commission to prepare funding for your project. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ondřej, and we'll get back to that in 15 minutes. Now I would like to ask the speakers, the last one of this block, in fact, that's Václav Onst, the founder of Hydrogen One. Please join us, Ladislav Onst. The clicker is ready, the floor is yours.
Dobré odpoledne.
Good afternoon. I prepared a short presentation on business-to-business commercial projects in hydrogen economy that can be used as inspiration for accelerating the use of hydrogen and hydrogen economy as a whole. Acceleration is a term that we have heard throughout this afternoon session. Originally, we were supposed to have a representative of Plug Power here, so the representative of the Executive Vice President for Europe, Mr. Benjamin Haycraft. But unfortunately, everyone in Plug is so busy in business that finally we were unable to come together. For that reason, we have shot an online video that I'm going to show you in a while. My name is Ladislav Ornst. I'm the co-founder of the fund called Hydrogen 1 and Hydrogen 2, and also of the company called United Hydrogen that we have here in the Czech Republic. We started in the USA as early as 2007. We started to produce liquid hydrogen for the industry. The first use was not in fuels, but in food industry, healthcare, metallurgy, and others. This was the original idea with an upside project for future. So we started in 2012 when the project of the spaceship of NASA ended. We bought liquid hydrogen trailers from NASA, and this was a game changer for us because we realized that handling liquid hydrogen is something completely new, and this was the direction that we wanted to follow. Our aim was to build our own capacity for storing liquid hydrogen, which we managed to do in 2019 as the only private company in the world. We produced 10 tons a day in Charleston in Tennessee. The input material was waste gas coming from the production of chlorine, something you have here in Ústí. We also ran the hydrogen refueling station at the JFK airport in New York, which we bought from Shell. We also started preparing a network of hydrogen refueling stations in California. For this development of hydrogen economy in the US, since we were running out of our own money, we needed large amounts of money, so we had to found a fund, an investment fund for the investments into hydrogen. It was called Hydrogen 1. And it wanted to expand the production in the USA, to build a network of refueling stations in California and so on. And in 2020, we were contacted by one of our good customers, the company Plug Power. If you haven't heard me until now, you will hear me very well in the next part of my presentation. We believe that this is the most advanced, most vertically integrated and most sophisticated company doing business in hydrogen worldwide. So we started discussing closer cooperation, capital cooperation, and the result was that we actually merged with Plug Power, and we could move out of the US as well. We created quite a nice profit, 300% of profit during 2 years, so most investors were very happy. Using Hydrogen 2, we are developing these activities in Europe, and we want to further invest in hydrogen economy in CEE countries. These are some pictures of the refueling station we had in New York and the concept of the Californian refueling stations.
Náš tým,
This is our team,
zakladatelé
founders
fondů,
of the fund, myself, Roman Horák, who is sitting here, and my colleague Petr Matuška.
máme další důležité
The
hráče,
team also consists of other important players. Its company Chem Invest,
náš pilíř inženýrů,
which forms our pillar in terms of engineering and cooperation in the technology area of hydrogen, and the group Ampere, which is responsible for the hydrogen business, which takes care of the sources for hydrogen, and Plug Power as the technology partner. And let me now show you the video with the Executive Vice President of Plug Power, Benjamin Haycraft. And he will tell you more about Plug Power, and its plans for Europe.
Welcome to Hydrogen Conference, in North Bohemia region in Ústí nad Labem. And I would like to ask you to tell us something about your company, which is in our eyes the most vertical integrated and successful global player on the hydrogen market.
Absolutely, with great pleasure. First, Ladislav, allow me to apologize. I wish I could be there in person, as it was initially scheduled. We have a special bond with your country and with you, because United Hydrogen was a pivotal acquisition for Plug, which enabled us to set foot in liquefaction, and this created quite a unique bond. So first, I really wish we could be here, and I apologize that I'm not being able to be here in person. So maybe first let me give you a bit of an overview of who Plug is for those who don't know Plug, and then we can give a bit of an overview of where we are in Europe, what we're doing, and how we're planning to expand. So Plug is a company that is at heart a technology company focused on fuel cells, so the applications that enable to convert hydrogen to electrical current. We've started to focus back in 1999 on those fuel cells when Plug was created, and then in 2008 we decided to focus on the material handling market. The material handling market, the value proposition was quite simple but very tangible. We were offering productivity gains to our clients. Our first clients were people like Walmart, and after doing a number of pilots, they told us, look, we really like your product, but if we're going to deploy it at scale, what we want is a turnkey solution where you provide us the fuel cell, the hydrogen fuel, as well as the infrastructure. And so we started with that. And with this small niche application that is the forklift, we've become the largest buyer of liquid hydrogen globally. Today, we have deployed almost 200 refueling stations at our customer site, more than anyone in the world. We have deployed more than 60,000 forklifts, more than anyone in the world. We've accumulated more than 1 billion operating hours. And so this is something that is very significant because we were the first to find a commercial market for hydrogen. So this is how we've become vertically integrated, and we pushed that model forward and further. And United Hydrogen is actually a good example of why we decided to push that level of integration further. So back in 2019, we had already become quite a significant company, already one of the largest buyers of liquid hydrogen. And this is when it became obvious to Plug that we needed to integrate the production of green hydrogen and the liquefaction of that hydrogen, because those are two corner pieces of our ability to deliver solutions to our clients. One thing that makes us singular with the rest of the market is that you have a lot of people selling and commercializing fuel cells. You have a lot of people selling and commercializing electrolyzers. You have a lot of people selling hydrogen molecule. But no one is focused on selling a complete solution that's going to bring tangible value to the end customer. And when you switch to this mindset, you look at things differently. You need to have the certainty of supply for your end client. You need to make sure that your client's operations run. Let me just give you one example. During COVID, more than 25% of the food consumed in the United States transited through a forklift that was powered by Plug Power's technology. So, when you're at this point of significance, you need to make sure that the solution you're giving to your customer effectively works. If it doesn't work, it's complete supply chain that become disrupted. So this is absolutely critical, and this is the reason we decided we're going to further integrate. So this integration actually went with hydrogen generation. That was the first thing we thought we need to integrate. And we thought if we're going to integrate the generation, there are two building blocks. One is the electrolysis of hydrogen, and the other one is the liquefaction. And that's actually why we acquired United Hydrogen. United Hydrogen was the only company in the world that has built a liquefaction plant in the past several decades beyond the industrial gas companies. It was the only one. So that was unique knowledge that helped us in a very tangible manner achieve our goals. And look at today, Plug Power in the US has announced that it will have built more than 500 tons per day of hydrogen generation that will be liquefied, relying on that unique knowledge stemming from United Hydrogen. So it is very significant. And
okay,
so,
Benjamin?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you tell us about some projects in Europe which are keeping you busy, all the stuff you are working on?
Absolutely. So the expansion in Europe started with a joint venture with Renault, the car manufacturer, where we are going to manufacture and commercialize throughout Europe fuel cell vans. And that was a very foundational moment for us in Europe. And this was a moment when we decided that we were going to accelerate and follow the same strategy in Europe as the one we have implemented in the US. So we've announced a first plant that will produce hydrogen in the port of Antwerp in 2025. We are looking at many more plants that aim to produce hydrogen throughout Europe, in the Nordics, in Eastern Europe, in Southwest, in Iberia, where we have a joint venture with a renewable producer. We announced last week that we will put the first offshore electrolyzer under extreme conditions in the middle of the sea, and that was inaugurated on Thursday. This is a world premiere, and it's happening in Europe. The first offshore electrolyzer. So we're pretty proud of that. Thank you. And so we are setting up all the building blocks. What is very, very, I'm very enthusiastic because we are seeing the commercial traction. So it's not about project and initiatives, it's also about a real business. I think you will see Plug announcing its first pedestal customer in the next couple of months. That's actually the reason I can't be here with you today. It's because we are having meetings with several clients that will probably become pedestal customers for material handling solutions. But the beauty of it, and this is where our market is much more mature, is that those pedestal customers, they don't want just material handling. They want material handling They want the vehicles from Hy-Via that we have in our joint venture with Renault. They will want trucks, etc., etc. And actually, as you know, we have some projects as well in Eastern Europe, and more specifically in Czech Republic. So we have an incredible commercial traction, and we ambition to have a very significant growth in the next 2-3 years. And just to give you one data point that illustrates that, when I started at Plug in Europe a couple of years ago, we were less than 30 employees. Today, throughout Europe, we have almost 300 people working every day on building the hydrogen economy throughout Europe.
That's impressive. Okay, Benjamin. Thank you very much for introduction of Plug Power and activities in Europe. And thank you very much. We switch back to conference audience. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ladislav.
Thank you. Bye.
Tak, teď prosím, tohle je pro mě příklad strategie, tahle ta mapka.
So, this is an example when you take a look at this map, how the market with forklifts, you would say that this is just a silly thing, but this shows how from a market with forklifts can become a strategic project. Each dot that you can see on the map is a logistics center. So this presentation is already 2 years old. So this was the plan for 2024, and there are many more logistics centers, and we will shift from 80 tons of hydrogen per day to 500 tons hydrogen produced per day. In the United States, the free market reaches 200 tons a day. And this was the forecast for 2024. Well, when we start with forklifts, or a client orders forklifts, and there is already the existing infrastructure, and there is the joint venture Renault with Renault strategy and Hy-Via. We plan huge numbers of production for the coming months. The next joint venture that's going to be published very soon is with truck producers, because since we have already existing infrastructure in the logistics center, of course, trucks and lorries can already come to the logistics center, or already a passenger car can already come there if you just change one fueling pump. So this is the beginning of our strategy. Yes, we are almost over. So this is an overview of our clients that already started working with those hydrogen forklifts, and they caused this huge expansion in the United States and the continuation of this expansion in Europe as well. Thank you very much. Maybe you can take a place on the right here. And I would like to ask the previous speakers to join us as well and take a seat here in the front at the table in the order that they gave their presentations. So maybe Petr Botoupal could join us, and then the next two colleagues who haven't spoken so far, but they will be a part of the panel discussion anyway. So Professor Smolický and Eduardo Palacín from the Hydrogen Aragon. Please take a seat. So we have about 30 minutes for our discussion. I will be very happy if you could join us on Slido and ask questions. I will start in a general way.
Tak, prosím. Asi zleva doprava, ale to nevadí.
Perhaps from the left to the right, but it doesn't matter. Take a seat. I hope that the interpretation is working because I will continue speaking Czech. And my question is going to be quite general because I will be happy if you, all of you, could answer it briefly. European Union, according to Ursula von der Leyen, should strive to change the paradigm in energy sector and respond not just to current problems. Petr, you've mentioned that as well, Ursula von der Leyen. This is a great promise in Europe that it's going to develop hydrogen technologies in the future. Ursula von der Leyen talked about it a lot. My question is, can you perceive von Leyen's words as realistic? And if you think that European legislation is in a stage that we are already ready for this big scaling, for those big ambitions that Ursula von der Leyen showed in her speech. Are we prepared at all? Are we ready in the European context? Maybe you can join us with your experience, Ladislav, from business. So maybe we could start with Adam Smolinski and Eduardo, who hasn't spoken yet. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Before I start answer for your question and start talking in the discussion, I start from a small recollection. I remember the year 2005. That was the year where I was start working in the area of hydrogen technology. We were working in hydrogen as a fuel for future use for the transport. And I remember that in 2005 we can only dream about meeting like today, namely Hydrogen Forum, in which we will be discuss about hydrogen, which can be used which could be used seriously in the transport, in the energy sector. But coming back to your question, I will look, from, let me say, perspective on Green Deal, which in shortcut tell us that Europe should be carbon neutral in 2050. And unfortunately, we are talking only about green hydrogen as a driving force of the hydrogen economy. In my personal opinion, we should talk general about hydrogen, not only the green one, especially that nowadays 95% of the hydrogen is still produced from steam reforming of methane. And what is the most important for all of us is the price of the hydrogen. Still, hydrogen produced from fossil fuels is 3 times cheaper than the hydrogen which is produced from renewable sources. I know that it slightly will change in the future, but still we should talk also about the gray hydrogen. Today I was calculating, it was 13 times mentioned gray hydrogen, and millions of times we were talking about green hydrogen, but in my personal opinion we should talk about hydrogen. Thank you.
Děkuji vřele. Pan Palacín, můžete prosím?
Thank you very much. Maybe Mr. Palatin can follow up on this.
Thank you very much for the invitation of being here today. I'm here as the managing director of the Hydrogen Foundation and a former member of the board of Hydrogen Europe Research. It's the association that are part of the Clean Hydrogen Partnership. From my point of view, obviously we have to have a very well-coordinated legislation, very clarity legislation, because that will produce that all this initiative, all this project that we have on the table can be put on the ground. Yeah. So a well-balanced legislation is key to attract all this investment to carry out the projects. Green hydrogen, clean hydrogen. If we talk about green hydrogen, we put the point of view on the production side. In Aragon, this is our bet. Green hydrogen as the goal is the goal we have to achieve. Produce green hydrogen, but if you move our view to the demand side, is the market. So the market needs competitiveness. They need competitive hydrogen. So maybe it could be a solution to start or to boost, to promote the demand side of the production using clean hydrogen or green hydrogen in those parts where green hydrogen is not favorable right now. But obviously, we have to work to achieve this objective using green hydrogen to achieve this carbon neutral scenario in 2050. But also, it's quite important to take into consideration that one thing is to use hydrogen to decarbonize, and another thing is to use hydrogen to reindustrialize. So we need an opportunity on hydrogen to develop the technology of a new sector, to strengthen the European leadership in the industrial field. And this is why I think all the messages that are coming from the Commission are receiving.
Díky moc. Yes, please, Javier, if you could follow. Yeah, it's the other way around. So there is no light. You can speak. When there is light, it's muted. Okay, thank you.
Without it. I am going to speak with my experience. I started to work in renewable energies in 1992. We are certified more than 30 years later at that moment. The reality is we never could imagine this reality in that moment. We have grown much that never thought in that moment. For me, the possibilities of the hydrogen are wider. We have is more diverse, has more kind of applications. I am sure that we are going by the good way, because in the European Union they were a lot time talking about hydrogen, but the more important decision started 7 years ago, and we are running very much. You can see the energetic and the ecological transition is running very much, and suddenly the facts, if you see the Russian invasion to Ukraine, is giving to Europe the reason in many things. Then I think that we are in a very, very good way, and doesn't matter for me if we can use 2 or 3 years more.
Thank you. Pánové, ještě se zeptám.
Thank you very much,
vás,
gentlemen.
Ondřeje Ptáčka.
I will ask Ondřej Ptáček and Petr Potoupal my initial question again.
Question for your colleagues. We will get back to you, Javier, in a couple of minutes. Sorry, it's difficult with the simultaneous translation. I'm sorry. But I'm supposed to speak Czech, so it's better when you keep your headphones on. Pánové, zpátky teda do češtiny. Ještě
So back to Czech, gentlemen, and a brief reaction for you. Petr, you've mentioned that, and Ondřej, you mentioned the obstacles that we have to overcome and some questions that we need to answer about the color of hydrogen. Is this the right pressure on the color of hydrogen, or should this be the right timing? Shall we wait for this discussion for later, for future? I think that there's no time to wait. We heard that a while ago. It's Actually, on the contrary, I think we shouldn't wait. There should be more pressure on acceleration of hydrogen technologies and their application on the market. And we need the 3 points that I mentioned in my presentation. Definitely, we need a lot of investment in the technology development and in some cases also in research. And then we also need to support hydrogen partnerships more, as we heard today as well. And we see that in this region that one of the hydrogen valleys is being established. Thirdly, we need to strengthen our funding so that all 3 pillars can work properly. Regarding the colors of hydrogen, I would differentiate here. The first perspective is political, definitely. There are countries and they consider, for example, nuclear energy a fair energy source. And the Czech Republic is part of this group of countries. Then there are countries from European Union that want to leave nuclear energy completely. And this is a pressure that is being created on pink hydrogen. This is hydrogen that's being produced from nuclear sources. Then we have blue hydrogen. There are many different colors, and they are differentiated according to the technology or the source of hydrogen, how the hydrogen is produced. Of course, the political level is very important, and I would not like to go into that. This is upon agreement with member states of the European Union, a democratic procedure. Then we have the ecological perspective, and in the discussion of my colleague that was mentioned here, grey hydrogen versus low-carbon hydrogen. Here we are talking about low-carbon hydrogen especially, although, as the colleague rightly mentioned, more than 98% of hydrogen is being produced from fossil fuels. So we need to accelerate the development in direction of low-emission carbon, that's clear. What color should the low-carbon hydrogen have in a specific country? I think that's a political decision, rather. And then we have the third perspective, and that's the economic perspective. In long term, available and cheap technologies are going to win over on the market. So we are not just talking about the production, but also about transport of hydrogen.
Thank you, Petra. Your reactions? We discussed the Ursula von der Leyen's speech. Her speech was visionary. And it's good, because the Commission is perceived as an institution full of bureaucrats who spoil everything. So it's good that our President showed a slightly different dimension. But she also made a specific pledge of 3 billion euros for the European Hydrogen Bank. This is political vision which is being transformed into these sport programs. Of course, I'm a layperson in the area of hydrogen. I would like to thank my colleague for his presentation. But today, hydrogen cannot be competitive to other energy sources. After sharing her vision, I'm sure that this will be the start of the next era, but I'm not president of the European Commission. I'm just an official which has to follow the recommendations. Okay, thank you. Let me follow up. I have a question to Mr. Ornst, because there is a question directly to you. You have shown the experience from USA. What do we have to do in Europe to accelerate the hydrogen industry? So from your perspective of a businessman, because you have certainly met the red tape of Europe, so we are over-bureaucratic European Union, which may be the fundamental obstacle to development, while in the USA the regulation is not so strict and not working in such a long term. So what is your opinion on this? For business, it's absolutely important that the figures are correct. If the figures are not correct, no one will do anything. So the biggest role of politicians is to make all the legislation as simple as possible so that it matches with the figures. And I absolutely agree with the opinion that we should not be so strict about green hydrogen, because you will not get to any nice figures with the green hydrogen. Just for your idea, the CO2 emissions, when you compare BEV and hydrogen-fueled vehicle, if you recharge it from the grid, or if you use liquid hydrogen, the emissions will be the same. But batteries are heavily supported, while hydrogen is only mentioned as green hydrogen. Once you have the necessary infrastructure, once you make the investments, it's much easier to switch to green hydrogen. Okay, thank you. We have received several questions, so I will go by clusters. We are entering new industries, but I have some specific questions. First, Mr. Smolinsky, you have had experience from a coal region, just like the Czech Republic. In Poland, how do you handle hydrogen? Because you come from the Silesian region, so I assume that you have most black coal mines. So how do you focus on hydrogen development after phasing out the mining activities?
Okay, yeah. General transition in Silesian region is a huge challenge for us. We must remember that Poland is the country where 80% of the electricity is still produced from coal. So it's a huge challenge, just let me say, to make the transformation, you know, in a very slow but correct way. In Poland, we established a Polish hydrogen strategy. That was the last strategy in Europe, by the way. And there appearing the voices that you are late because you established a strategy as the last country in the European Union. I say no, we base on the best practices which we can find in all strategies of the whole European Union country. We're trying to take the best practices from the EU hydrogen strategy. In our strategy, we also put our efforts on development of the green hydrogen. However, we are not colorized hydrogen in our strategy. We are talking about low emission hydrogen, zero emission hydrogen, and high emission hydrogen. High is of course producing from fossil fuels. However, we also mentioned about that, and we would like to focus our attention on steam reforming of methane, but combined with CCS, and we got a strong discussion about CCS technology, namely carbon dioxide capture and storage of CO2. But the main effort is oriented on development of electrolysis using the electricity for that purpose from photovoltaic as well as windmills. Thank you.
Děkuju.
Thank
Question
you.
for Mr. Navarro, spada Mr. Palacin. Řeknu je to česky, tu otázku. What
is the source of your revenues, meaning the Aragon Hydrogen Master Plan? Is this connected to the Cohesion Fund or structural funds that Spain or Aragon is receiving from the EU? So what is the financing of your activities?
Any of you guys? Yes, please.
Yes. Only one idea. Last week, were approved in the European Union 35 projects, IPCAI,
AI, yes.
with, I think, could be 5.4 or 5.6 billions of euros. 35 projects, 7 in Spain, 2 minimum in Aragon. That gives idea that we are receiving funds. And it's not only that. The funds of next generation is, there are many projects in our regions ready for that. We are receiving, I told you in my presentation, that in between 2016 and 220, we received 35 million of euros, but in this next 5 years could be 350. So more than 10 or more times that quantity. And our projects, they have to be feasible economically. The promoters know that very well, and they are being realistic. But at this moment, is not one problem of money, I think.
Thank you, děkuji moc. Potom dotaz, který je
And a question
na toho, kdo je schopen zodpovědět.
the one who will be able to answer for the intended import of 10 billion tons of hydrogen. Do we intend to produce it from renewable sources? To what extent will it increase the price of hydrogen? So I'm not sure whether you have experience with transportation of hydrogen. Ladislav, feel free to answer.
Já myslím, že se to navýší hodně.
I think that this will significantly increase the price because 10 million tons of hydrogen means 10 billion kilos. It's all about figures. And 1 kilo from renewable sources is about 60 kilowatt hours. I'm not sure whether we will have the renewable sources available for this, because there is a set of primary materials, coal, but we don't want coal. So this should all be from some new capacity that should be built somewhere. Let me calculate this. It's 600 kilowatt hours, that's a lot. It's 600 billion kilowatt hours. So this is a huge task for you. If you can calculate this equation, well, you will get a small gift from us. So that's like the production of the Czech Republic. Now, once you have the microphone, another question. Do you intend to establish cooperation with manufacturers of forklifts such as Linde or MDH? Yes, sure. We have had negotiations with Toyota. Plug itself says that within this segment they already have 99% of the market, because they came with a solution in which you just take out the battery from the forklift, and instead of the battery you install the device that has the same dimensions, and that includes hydrogen technology. And you just need to install refueling stations, so it's very easy. So we definitely negotiate with various manufacturers and distributors, and we try to exert maximum pressure to be able to run a pilot project here in the Czech Republic. Thank you. Today we will have a matchmaking in some 2 hours, so if you want to participate, you have the possibility. We have about 8 minutes for our discussion. I would like to ask the audience whether they have a question.
Dobrý den, já bych se chtěl
Hello.
zeptat na tu realitu, že vlastně polovinu z toho vodíku.
In reality, half of the hydrogen should be imported.
Včepačně zeptám, jestli se
Let me
jedna
ask
energetická závislost
whether
druhou.
one energy dependence will not be replaced by another one.
V té vodíkové vertikále
If we look at the hydrogen vertical,
není, jak vnímáte
can we see a risk in this security issue? How do you perceive the import of hydrogen to the Czech Republic or other non-self-sufficient EU countries?
Jenom prosím, jestli ještě někdo z kolegů chce třeba začít. Tak
Do you want to start? Any one of you?
Tak jestli můžu krátce, co mi k tomu napadá. Tak samozřejmě
Just a few comments.
za to ty kapacity domácí výroby a teď otázka.
Realistic
Když se bavíme o České republice.
point of view is, regardless of whether we speak about the Czech Republic or the EU, there is a certain capacity of renewable sources that can be used or that can be built.
Právě mimo jiné na těch barvách toho vodíku, jo? Třeba tady v České
Then it will also depend on the colors of hydrogen. For example, here in the Czech Republic, some low emission solutions can be supported. Then blue hydrogen can be also supported, which is the hydrogen for which carbon capture and storage is used, or pink hydrogen using nuclear energy. In this case, the domestic capacity can be higher. But I mentioned the three different perspectives. What will definitely play a role is the economic point of view. My colleague Mr. Ornst already said that all the investors will make their calculations, and if they adopt the technologies, they will probably use the grant schemes. The technologies are available, but they need to be also economically advantageous, and they need to contribute to the reduction of the carbon footprint, which is important for carbon neutrality by 2050. Then, as for the import-export balance, several aspects will be important. If there is an insufficient capacity for renewable sources for green hydrogen, then Europe will obviously have to import hydrogen. That's what we also do in case of fossil fuels, but unfortunately there are not enough energy sources to cover European consumption of fossil fuels. In the sea you can see the ships importing LNG, and you may imagine that in future we may import large quantities of hydrogen. You asked about energy security. We don't know what the development will be in Near East, in Northern Africa, and also in Eastern Europe. If we assume that energy security plays a role, and after the experience from this year it will definitely play a role, then we might arrive at a certain mix of domestic sources, but also diversified sources that are imported. And once one of the sources stops operating, you still have one pillar that you can use. So you need a diversified portfolio. That's the same what we now discuss in the area of gas or oil. Mr. Navarra?
If we pay attention to the situation, we are living a very special situation. Now we have to change our natural gas, and we have to import hydrogen if we want to do the transition. But the geographical points where the hydrogen could be produced in the world is completely different than the fossil fuels. And because, for example, in Spain, we will not need to import hydrogen. We have a lot of sun, a lot of sea around, we have a lot of wind. For sure, we don't need, but even you can buy hydrogen from Australia, from the south of Africa. You are not only depending of some country, another country, 10 or 20 countries in the world. The situation for me is completely different if we don't get the energetic autonomy, because I have the idea that I don't know in how many years we will get that autonomy.
Thank you. Tak a poprosím, Ladislave, vy jste ještě chtěl se k tomu vyjádřit?
Mr. Orns, do you want to add something?
Jenom 10 milionů tun.
10 million tons
Za rok?
Za rok.
a year.
Tak to je
Was that the figure? Yes, that's okay.
5
It would mean
miliard euro investice.
50 billion euros of investments. Because if you make projections, what it means about green energy. But you asked about the import. Hydrogen is a light element, and thanks to its properties,
Velice specifická manipulace s ním.
handling hydrogen is highly specific, and we had various projects in the US, and we compared the figures to imported hydrogen from Chile.
Pokud to zaplatí dotace a nejsou
If
kapexy,
you have subsidies and if you have no capex, then it's worth it.
to dotace, tak to nelze
But
provést.
if you don't get a subsidy, you can't do it because the working capital that you spend on handling hydrogen is so high that most projects would not be feasible. That's just a comment to the import. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, once again, thank you for your participation. Thanks for coming. We have now run out of time for our discussion. And ladies and gentlemen, dear audience and dear viewers at e15.cz, we will have a short 15-minute coffee break, and then we will start the last session on barriers that we have in the Czech Republic and that prevent fast development of hydrogen economy. I'll be glad if you join us and if we can continue in our discussion. Thank you very much.